Hey everybody, welcome to Crackpot, the podcast where each and every week we dive into a different conspiracy theory and we discuss the merits or the demerits of each. We're your hosts, I'm Tim.
And I'm Zach.
And folks, get your umbrellas ready because it is raining men. And everything, fish,
what?
Frogs, I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Should we redo this one, Tim, already?
Man.
Yeah, there we go. No, we are jumping into this one here because this week we thought, you know what? We'd like to cover just a bunch of weird stuff that people have experienced falling from the sky.
It's one of the weirder topics, and there's a lot. There's a lot of weird stuff that has fallen from the sky.
So I should just say, like, when Tim and I were chatting offline about, okay, what other topics should we get started on? One of the ones that you brought up was actually you hear about all these sorts of weird, like, I don't know if they're weather phenomena or just things that are falling from the sky that shouldn't,
right,
with generally no real explanation. So let's do a good old-fashioned grab bag.
Exactly, grab bag time, folks.
Let's talk about what some of these are. And some of them make sense, some of them really don't.
Agreed. We haven't really talked about the ones we've each individually done. So.
No, we're coming into this totally blind with what we've both looked into, I guess I would say. And
they're all weird.
They're all weird, and some of them have explanations. Probably many of them don't.
Yeah.
Folks, hang on. This is just purely for fun. Grab your tinfoil hats, like Tim said. Grab an umbrella.
Grab an umbrella, folks. Grab an aluminum foil umbrella.
Although you might need something a little more heavy duty based on this first one that I'm going to talk about. And the reason why I'm bringing this one here is because it's a little silly, I'll be honest with you. Thought it might set the tone for kind of the rest of the episode. Spoiler alert, we do have an explanation to this one, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
And you'll find out why shortly. But I thought, this would be perfect to kick us off because this one literally hits awfully close to home.
Yeah?
Burnsville, Minnesota.
I think I drove through Burnsville on my way here.
I was going to say, not too far from where we are recording this one. And also, this one happened fairly recently. Let's talk about it. We're talking about October 2015. Pre-pandemic, iPhone, 13 or something? We're all just chilling at home, doing our thing.
iPhone 7, I think.
Yeah, right. Motorola flip phone. No, we're all doing our thing. And good friend of the show, our pal, poor Evaristo Salinas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, his house was hit with something that literally fell from the sky.
Good Lord. Let
me tell you what happened. So poor Mr. Salinas was at home chilling one day when all of a sudden he hears, a giant crash or something hitting his house.
Oh, I've had that.
Actually.
But that was a tree. That was terrestrial.
Yeah, it fell from the sky, but it was still firmly rooted in the ground, or at least for a time being.
It wasn't that firmly rooted, but nevertheless, yeah.
Right. Anyways, go back a few seasons if you want to hear about Tim's treehouse. Anyways, so he hears and feels this huge thing hitting his house, and he runs outside to try to figure out what's going on, and he notices there's a giant hole in his roof.
Oh my God.
And not only is there a giant hole in his roof, there's also brown stains on his siding on the house.
Oh, okay.
And when he went to go investigate a bit further, he noticed it was foul smelling and brown in color. So what did he do? He got a hold of authorities, and the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, investigated the incident and determined that it was blue ice.
Blue ice?
Blue ice. Now, Mr. Timothy Jerome, you may be wondering what blue ice actually is.
Yeah?
Hint, it's not a freezy from 7-Eleven.
I was going to say, it sounds like a slushy or something.
Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Yeah. That's right, folks. Blue ice is a mix of de-icing material and frozen human waste.
Oh, good Lord.
Onboard lavatory tanks on commercial airplanes.
Oh, man.
That's right. Poor Mr. Salinas' home was drenched in beep.
What? So, okay. So it was a mistake. It shouldn't have fallen,
It
right?
shouldn't have fallen.
Okay,
So this one is
okay.
squarely explainable. What they
Okay.
determined later was that there was a leak of some sort, in between the rivets or whatever of the actual aircraft that was holding all this stuff in, and it kind of broke and then released human waste all over Mr. Salinas'
right on his house.
Now, sorry to make light of a probably tragic situation at the time. And I'd be curious to know if like homeowners insurance covers that kind of
It's
stuff.
got to be, right? That's an act of God, I think.
There we go. But also, this has happened more than once, okay?
Oh, no.
2006, near Chino, California. A woman narrowly avoided injury when a chunk of frozen waste landed near her. Listen to this. A large chunk of this blue ice crashed through the roof one evening. The ice tore through the San Bernardino County home and landed in a bathtub.
Whoa, nice aim.
Yeah, amazing aim, right? And upon reflection and thinking about what happened, this poor person said, well, he said he was thankful that it actually landed in the bathtub because he thought that maybe the force from the fall and everything else, by landing in the bathtub, it actually prevented further damage to his home.
Definitely.
So that was pretty wild. Also, it happened again in 2013 in England to a home in Bristol in which blue ice shattered through the roof of a different home.
Oh, my God. Well, maybe I guess you don't hear about it if it lands in a farmer's field or, the middle of Lake Michigan or something.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, they do, deposit or release this stuff over, wide swaths of land usually.
Do they?
Or even perhaps the ocean. I guess what I'd always heard was that it's supposed to burn up upon like re-entry to the atmosphere.
Interesting.
And dissipate. But, I mean, that doesn't make me feel any better. And clearly it doesn't always work, so.
Well, let's get Dave Matthews' opinion on this.
Satellite.
You know the Dave Matthews story, right?
Oh, dude.
In Chicago?
Oh, yeah. Okay, this happens all the time, evidently.
Look it up. Look, I don't feel like talking about
that. Was a bus, but yeah.
A bus onto a boat. But same basic physics and...
Yeah, premise.
and materials and everything.
All right, sorry, that was a little... Woo! That might have been a little tawdry. I apologize.
That's all right.
Let's keep rolling with some different ones here.
Well, let's talk about some real stuff falling from the sky, not just airplane stuff. We're talking about fish.
Ooh, fish falling from the sky.
Fish falling from the sky.
Not flying fish?
Not even flying fish. Not even PHISH, actual fish. So this has happened in multiple locations, multiple times. Fish shouldn't really fall from the sky. I mean, look, what should fall from the sky? Rain, sleet, snow,
hail.
Yeah, hail could fall.
Yeah.
Leaves. I would accept leaves.
Yeah, exactly. I would say, there are some noted weather phenomena in which it's like, yeah, we've got some spider webs or something blowing around up there. But
yeah, no big deal, right?
Not fish. Fish should not happen.
Anyway, fish apparently somewhat regularly fall from the sky. And this happened most recently that I could find in June 21st, 2010. And I believe this took place in Mexico. And it occurs on such a regular basis. I don't mean this like regular, but it occurs with enough frequency that they have a name for it. It's called Lluvia de Pisces, which means not Pisces. But yeah, it means basically fish are falling from the sky, I think is the direct translation.
Okay.
But when this happens, it's not always like, look, if this happened here or Minneapolis, I'd be terrified. I would think it was like end times.
Yeah. I wouldn't want that either. So
like, look outside and it's just fish flopping around on the ground or something. But in Honduras and in Latin America, people celebrate it. It's like a time of celebration. It means that God has blessed the area with plentiful food and everything, and people gather them all up and they have fish fries.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, yeah.
So I
Manna
guess
from heaven.
Yeah, I guess that could happen. But anyway, guys, from all the way from England to California to India, this occurs kind of on the regular. In some cases, there have been people who find like a large bass that is in their garden bed or something. They're like, wait a minute, what's going on? And that generally occurs when like a bird drops a fish or something.
Yeah, you go outside, you're like, oh, nice bass. And then all of a sudden, wait a second.
Right. So that would be one explanation, but like hundreds and hundreds of fish spread over several acres is not probably birds dropping it. So the general theory as to how and why this happens is basically called a waterspout, which is a tornado of water that basically sucks up a bunch of fish out of a lake or a river or an ocean or something, and the wind blows it away, and then it basically just drops.
That is so weird. It makes total sense, right? And so, yeah, those poor fish are just swimming around, doing their thing.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, also they get sucked up, and then they get blown away miles and miles later away from water. Okay.
Same basic idea, but another somewhat common thing, frogs.
Frogs?
Frogs. Fish and frogs, guys. Biblical proportions here. But I mean, this has happened for like ever. There's a case of an ancient Greek philosopher writing about this, who you've never heard of and whose name I can't pronounce. I'm not even going to try. But in his writing, he said the houses and roads have been full of frogs after a storm. So
okay.
it occurs. And we have a case in Kansas City. In 1873, there was a shower of frogs which darkened the air and covered the ground for a long distance.
Well, see, this is really weird because frogs generally either come from the swamp or come from like the ground.
Yeah, or a pond or something like that, a marshy area, yeah.
And it's not like we had a water spout necessarily sucking this stuff up.
Maybe,
or a tornado. You'd know, like... Oh, yeah, there was a tornado 10 minutes ago. I guess it makes sense. There's frogs everywhere.
I don't know. In France, it happened in 1794. They said it was a 30-minute downpour that happened in the middle of a battle. It was in the middle of a battle, 30 minutes of like frogs raining down onto the battlefield. Like, what do you do? Like, if that's not a sign from the Almighty, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
So they're just like, whoa, time out, everybody.
Top secret weapon here.
Launch the frogs. It happened not Siberia. It happened in Serbia in 2005. Thousands of tiny frogs who all also survived the fall and started hopping around. So generally speaking, when the frogs fall from the sky, they land and they splat. But in some cases, sometimes they get up and hop away. And most recently, it happened in Japan. I don't have the exact date, but it was somewhat recently. And that case is among the more confusing because at least with the other ones, there was a storm that also happened in the area. There were high winds. It's like, okay, probably another water spout tornado type thing. But the one in Japan... it was just like cloudy frogs.
It's like, that's so weird.
That's weird. But again, main theories, you have the water spouts, like I mentioned, strong winds, perhaps, and then birds are maybe dropping frogs.
I was going to say, yeah, like if it's like depending on the amount, it could be explained by birds, I suppose. But also if it's like thousands, then no. Jeez.
Otherwise, I have to assume that this is aliens sucking up frogs, doing experiments on them, and then dropping them on unsuspecting townsfolk.
Yeah, we haven't heard a ton about that, but who knows? Maybe that's what's going on here.
Maybe.
All right, well, let's drift over to the Middle East. Let's talk about something quite literally disgusting, but also awesome at the same time, falling from the sky.
Uh-huh.
If I say something is both dirty / disgusting and awesome, do you have any ideas what this
I have
could
a
be?
few, but I'll keep them to myself. Yeah.
Okay, folks. Well, let's talk about some money falling from the sky. Straight up cash.
Cash.
Straight cash, homie, falling from the sky. By the way, I'm waiting for this to happen to me at some point.
Yeah. Where's my pennies from heaven, huh?
Yeah, that's right. Well, let's turn back the clock to a simpler time, Mr. Timothy. Let's go to Kuwait City, the year of 2015 of our Lord. I actually don't have the exact date, but anyways, it took place in about 2015. 500 Kuwaiti dinar banknotes fell from the sky. Now,
wow.
I know it doesn't sound like much, like, okay, 500, or maybe it does sound like a decent amount.
It's enough.
Yeah, it's not like 3, right? But each one of these bills at the time was worth about $1,600 US.
Whoa.
So 500 individual bills, all worth about $1,600 a pop.
So it's paper currency, not coins.
Correct. Paper currency. Oh, coins would be terrifying.
Coins would be very...
Ouch. Yeah, no. Paper currency fell from the sky one day over Kuwait City.
Wow.
What happened was essentially pandemonium because you had cars stopping. You had people running out into streets trying to collect all this money because they had 500 bills to choose from, apparently.
Oh, Lord.
And nobody knows to this day what caused this.
Really?
No idea. Okay, so let's talk about what it could have possibly been, because there's a few theories, but ain't no one figured it out yet. But a lot of people are a little wealthier because of it. So one potential theory is that, and I got to say, I think this is the least likely. A wealthy individual was just feeling, I don't know, charitable that day and released a bunch of currency.
Made it rain.
Literally made it rain. That's theory number one.
It kind of makes sense. I mean, you say Kuwait City. I don't know much about the city, but I assume there's some big office buildings or apartments or something.
Somebody threw a bunch of money out the window and it rained down upon them. I guess
that's not a mystery.
That's very possible. Another potential theory here is that there was an airplane flying overhead and maybe somebody unloaded, let's just call it green ice. I don't know why they would unload it, but perhaps the
rivets were loose and it just...
a bunch of money flew out the side. That's very possible. One other theory that I got to say I actually think might be the root cause of this is that maybe there was some sort of stolen money, a bank heist or something like that. And as they were flying, they had to dispose of some of the crime.
I like that. Yeah.
And then it just so happened it was over Kuwait City, and that's what it was.
I like that one, yeah.
Like, we got to get rid of this money. Stat.
But, okay, it was Kuwaiti currency, though, right?
Correct.
Yep. Okay. So, I mean, with that, I would assume that they would look and see, was there a place that was robbed over the last couple hours or days or something?
Yeah. You'd think you would have something. Now, it also could have been, like, laundered money. It could have been drug money, gambling. Like, not every bill is traceable necessarily in that regard. So, jury's still out, evidently. But if you guys
But they were able to keep it.
They were able to keep
They didn't
it.
have to turn it in or anything like that.
Yeah. Whew. But nobody knows where it came from or really how it fell from the sky. So it could have been from a building, could have been from an airplane, could have been something else. Nobody knows.
How do you claim that on your taxes?
I believe it's a write-off. I know that much. And I believe it's a charitable donation to you.
Agreed. All right. Well, if it's not money, what's the next coolest thing to fall from the sky?
Not money.
Raining blood.
I was going to say CDs.
Raining blood.
MP3s.
From a lacerated sky.
Jeez.
You like Slayer? You don't like Slayer. I don't even know why I asked.
I wouldn't say I don't like Slayer. I just haven't listened to enough of Slayer.
Sure.
And people that love Slayer love Slayer.
Yeah, no, I don't love Slayer, but they're still cool. I've seen Dave Lombardo, so that's my claim to fame. Anyway, Raining Blood, guys. Raining Blood. What happened? A bunch of people woke up, and by the way, this has happened in at least two cases.
Ooh, wait, actual blood?
Well, let's figure it out.
All right. Something red.
Something red. People just kind of woke up, started going about their day, and realized that everything was wet and covered in red something.
Okay.
So Spain 2014 happened while everyone was asleep. So it happened overnight, and the people woke up, and it was like pandemonium. It was like terror.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, that'd be like awful. Like, what is this red substance?
Yeah. I mean, people literally thought it was the end of the world, the apocalypse.
I would too.
Yeah, in a way, I don't blame them at all. And basically, this entire town of Zamora, Spain, was coated in a red, sticky substance. And it was so much that it like seeped into the ground and into their drinking water, so that they had to deal with this for a period of time. And then in Kerala, India, so this is in the southern tip, the southern peninsula of India. This happened in 2001. Just red rain that happened for like 2 straight weeks.
Oh my gosh.
And the initial thought was like, okay, maybe it's like sand or dirt from somewhere that got picked up in a storm and it mixed with the clouds, and it's red, right?
Yeah.
But they did all these tests. It's not dirt. It's not sand. They were able to gather the stuff, of course, and they were able to do tests on it. And they determined that there were red cells, but the cells looked like insects. Now, pause for a moment. I don't know if the cells themselves looked like insects or if the cells resembled insect cells.
I would say probably the latter.
Probably the latter.
Yeah.
Multiple sources, wasn't able to clarify that, just full disclosure. But there was no DNA.
Wow.
In these cells.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Very weird. One idea is that it was a comet.
No, just no.
There was a sonic boom that was heard in the region like shortly before this happened. They're like, oh, okay, maybe, yeah, comet came through full of dirty, dusty something. And, Or maybe not dirty dust. Maybe it was a comet. And we've talked about the panspermia idea of like life on Earth originating from a different planet or somewhere else in the universe that lands here on a comet or an asteroid, I guess, or meteor. I don't know.
One of those.
One of those three. And it spreads life around that way. So they're like, oh, wow, maybe we're witnessing like panspermia 2.0 or something like that.
Okay, so now that you break that down, that's quite a bit more logical than I initially thought.
The one in Spain, 99.9% turned out to be microalgae or something called Haematococcus pluvalis.
I knew it.
Yeah, right? It's tip of my tongue right there. But basically like an algae type thing that changes color, and it just got sucked up into the clouds.
Sure, similar to like the water spout situation. That actually makes sense to me. I was going to say maybe some insects got sucked up and then they got shredded in the atmosphere and then it rained blood. Okay.
Yeah, but it's either that or it's extraterrestrial cells or...
Clearly.
I mean, I don't know. They don't know. It was not blood per se.
Okay, not human blood at least.
Not human blood at least.
Yep.
But red stuff falling from the sky, kind of weird.
Yeah, no kidding.
Let's stick with the grotesque for a moment, shall we?
Oh yeah, that's what we're all about here.
Let's talk about mystery meat falling from the sky.
Spam?
No, not quite. Think grosser than spam.
I have no idea.
I don't either. Lutefisk, I think, is the only thing I can come up with. But all right, 1876, March 3rd, 1876, chunks of meat fell from the sky.
Chunks of meat fell from the sky.
In Bath County, Kentucky.
Oh my gosh.
It covered the area of a field. I don't know how big this field is. Let's just say it's 10 acres. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a field.
It's big enough.
There you go.
It's more than a city block, probably. Chunks of meat falling from the sky, complete and utter bafflement. Everyone was trying to identify it, trying to figure out what this was. Everyone's confused. Some people even tasted it. Let me just stop right here, Zach. Meat falls from the sky. What do? Do you taste it?
Well, the fish, yeah, I suppose, but not mystery meat. I probably would let that go, or at least cook it very well done.
Two men tasted it. They said the flakes looked like beef, but tasted like either venison or mutton.
Okay, a little more gamey or something.
A little gamey, yeah. There was another person that was absolutely convinced it was neither of those. It was actually bear.
I couldn't weigh in on that, but okay. I believe it.
Right? How, like, just logically, how do you get a bunch of meat
falling
from the sky? Walk us through this. What's your explanation?
Water spout goes over a butcher shop and then releases it later. I don't know.
Okay, well, one idea is a vulture or group of vultures regurgitating their food.
That'd have to be a lot of vultures.
It would. Vulture vomit.
Huh. All right.
So they've been known to do this. Vultures are very interesting animals, and they'll eat a whole lot, and they'll take off. And if they have too much on board, they have to jettison some to keep afloat. So
okay.
Watch out for vomiting vultures, I guess. But again, like spread over an entire field? Like that's bonkers. That's that's got to be a whole murder of vultures or something.
I was going to say, if it's depending on really how big that field is, I suppose you could say it, is from vultures, but also it seems totally irrational.
I agree, man.
Them crooked vultures.
There you go. So there were a group of scientists that were able to gather some of this up and look at it under a newfangled microscope back in 1876. And their analysis was it was very similar to either lung tissue of a human infant or horse meat.
Wow. Those overlapping concentric circles.
Don't ask any questions as far as that goes, but okay. I guess they look the same.
I knew it.
Don't know how you get those up there. Another possibility was maybe this was cyanobacteria, also called nostoc, which is basically a congealed bacteria that turns into like a fleshy jelly type thing, and also was somehow sucked up into the atmosphere and then rain down upon a farmer's field? I don't know, man.
I don't know either.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So if we don't have a root cause, if we really can't get down to the bottom of this, then I don't know what it would be. It's so odd.
It could be aliens.
Yes. It's just so specific. It's like fish I can kind of get because you might have a body of water.
Yes. Frogs, same thing.
Yeah, but actual meat suggests it's like from a butcher shop. So that's very, very odd.
Okay. Let's switch gears slightly and talk about one slightly more appetizing. Candy.
Oh, thank you.
So, candy falling from the sky, I assume you would probably take that over meat
heck yeah.
most days of the week. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Same. Again, this happened in the 1800s. Lake County, California. 2 times. It happened 2 times in Lake County, California. Crystallized sugar fell from the sky. People described lumps of crystallized sugar between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch in size that straight up fell from the sky.
So people actually like tasted this because, like sugared crystal or whatever, like you can tell it's like it's sugar, but you don't know until you taste it because it could also be salt or something else.
Yep. Nope. They gathered it up. The residents made syrup out of it.
They then proceeded to eat it?
Yeah.
Like actually, oh my God.
Yeah, they made syrup out of it and
processed it. Okay.
Jarred it and bottled it and used it on their pancakes for the next couple of years, I guess. I don't know,
Free
man.
sugar, yeah.
So where did it come from? How did it get there? Literally, no one has any idea.
This is another mystery.
There's no candy factory nearby. There's no sugar cane processing plant. Sugar just straight up fell from the sky twice, and no one knows why.
Well, yeah, because I was going to say initially, like maybe there's a sugar beet farm or some sort of sugar cane farm or something like that, and maybe by way of nature's miracles, it processed it and turned it into sugared crystal, crystal sugar.
Right?
I don't know.
It's as good a guess as anyone's.
Okay.
I found this great quote again. This is like 1857 or something. This guy was quoted in the paper as saying, "If this is a canard, it is surely a sweet one." It is just a fantastic quote. So
I love it.
If it's a hoax, it's a sweet one.
Hey-o. All right, Mr. Timothy. Well, let's shift gears here. I've got 3 more examples of some bizarro stuff falling from the sky. This could rightfully be its own topic, but I like how this all ties in with what we've been talking about. No, this one's serious. This one's the real deal. Nobody knows what it is. Thousands of people have experienced this, and it's all just very, very, very confusing. So let's talk about something called angel hair falling from the sky. Now, you might have heard of this. Do you have any guesses before I get too far?
I think we've talked about this phenomenon, right?
A little bit, yeah, here and there. So angel hair, this phenomenon, it's a web-like, sticky, sometimes fibrous material that falls from the sky, disintegrates quickly after it falls. Sometimes it even evaporates or even melts upon contact or when people touch it. And the reason why they call it angel hair is because people have described it as being very similar to like a white wispy substance, almost like spider webs.
Spider webs.
But what's kind of weird and crazy about all of this stuff is that it typically precedes a UFO sighting. So that's what I wanted to talk about. I want to talk about 3 mass sightings or experiences of angel hair after a UFO event.
Let me kind of, and maybe you'll get into this, but has anyone been able to collect or preserve?
Yes and no. And so in each one of these counts, I'll talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
But I guess at this point in time, the jury's still very much out.
Wow.
So in terms of its appearance, like I said, it almost looks like a spider web. It's this thin, silky material shimmering in the sunlight. It's usually frail. It evaporates or vanishes within minutes. Sometimes has an odor. Eyewitnesses, or I guess nose witnesses, describe it as having a chemical or metallic smell, which is interesting.
Oh, very interesting.
And it tends to stick or cling to objects like trees, fences, and roofs before it disappears. All right, so let's talk about the first mass sighting of this thing or this stuff. It took place in Oloron, France. This is back in October of 1952. Now, listen to this. According to a high school superintendent, a man named Jean-Yves Prigent, he said there was a cotton cloud type strange shape up in the sky. Above that kind of cotton candy cloud thing, he noticed a narrow cylinder. This cylinder up in the sky, inclined at a 45-degree angle, was moving slowly in a straight line towards the southwest, and suddenly a plume of white smoke escaped from its upper end. Now, listen to this. Above this cylinder were 30 smaller objects, or approximately 30 smaller objects, that when viewed through, opera glasses, looked to be red spheres surrounded by a yellow ring. He said, and I'm quoting here, "These saucers moved in pairs, following a broken path characterized in general by rapid and short zigzags. When two saucers drew away from one another, a whitish streak, like an electric arc, was produced between them." So they look up, they see this cotton candy-like cloud. Yeah. A little bit above that is this giant cylindrical figure. Above that are like 30 little flying saucers buzzing around,
and
releasing
shooting white stuff like Spider-Man, essentially.
100%.
Whoa.
So after, hundreds of people saw this thing take place, and again, people at a school actually witnessed this from the schoolyard, they noticed a white hair-like substance that rained down on all of the objects in town. It wrapped itself around telephone wires, tree branches, roofs of houses. When observers picked up the material and rolled it into a ball, it turned into a gelatin substance and then vanished.
What?
One man who observed the episode from a bridge claimed the material fell on him. He was able to extract himself from it only by cutting away the clear material from whatever was attached to him. He said, apparently, people tried to collect it and study it, but it just essentially vanished after a few minutes. 10 days later, a nearly identical series of events occurred in Gallalac, France.
Also in France.
So, and also, within a week and a half.
What?
Bizarro.
So, okay. I heard you. I hear you. It was craft and saucers and everything else like that. But is there a possibility that it could have been spider webs?
Yeah, I mean, one of the theories here is that, okay, you have spiders that travel through the atmosphere, which we know about, and they spin webs and make little parachutes and buzz around up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly could have been that. However, I don't think that spider web, disintegrates or turns into a gelatinous material. So that's very, very odd. I don't know.
Huh.
Or it's related to the UFOs they saw.
What even would that be?
That's a very good question.
Maybe it's their blue ice.
Oh, it could be their blue ice. It could also be, maybe some of their propulsion materials.
Ah, okay. I like that.
I mean, I sincerely don't know. But let's keep going because there's a few more of these examples, and this one might be my actual favorite. So let's go back to the 27th of October, 1954 in Florence, Italy. Crisp autumn day in Tuscany. The Fiorentina Football Club was playing against one of its arch rivals, apparently. They had 10,000 fans watching the game from the Stadio Artemi Franchi. So 10,000 people were sitting there. Just after halftime, the stadium fell completely silent. The crowd was no longer watching the match, but they were looking up in the sky, fingers pointing. Even the players stopped playing the game. The ball rolled to a dead stop. One of the footballers, a man named Ardicchio Manginini, said, and I'm quoting here, "I remember everything from A to Z. It was something that looked like an egg that was moving slowly, slowly, slowly. Everyone was looking up, and also there was some glitter coming down from the sky, silver glitter. We were absolutely astonished. We had never seen anything like it before. We were absolutely shocked." So 10,000 people in a stadium watching a football match. Even the players, everybody just stops, looks up.
Everyone saw it.
Sees this giant egg-like shape zigzagging around, releasing these crystals, spider webs or something. Let me keep going. So there was another witness. His name was Gigi Boni. He said, and I'm quoting here, "I remember clearly seeing this incredible sight. They were moving very fast, and then they stopped. It all lasted a couple of minutes. I would like to describe them," so these are like the craft, right? Mm-hmm. "Like a Cuban cigar. Mm-hmm. They just reminded me of Cuban cigars in the way that they looked. And apparently shortly afterwards, a silvery substance similar to a spiderweb fell from the sky." Another witness, Roberto Pinotti, who at the time was 10, he said, "It's a fact. At the same time the UFO was seen over Florence, there was a strange sticky substance falling from above." He said, in English, we call this angel hair. He said, "The only problem is, after a short period of time, it disintegrates. I remember in broad daylight seeing the roofs of the houses in Florence covered in the white substance for about an hour, like snow, until it just evaporated."
Holy smoke! Why don't people talk about this more?
It's so funny too, because I had to translate it, but it's reading this like local, Florentina newspaper account, and this is like well documented. There's no mystery here.
No one's saying, no, you didn't see what you saw.
Jupiter Swampcast. No, it's like we saw a craft of some sort, and then the entire city was covered in spider webs.
That is so bonkers.
Now listen to this too. A local newspaper journalist by the name of Giorgio Battini, he told years later an Italian TV program what happened. He was at work, evidently. He started receiving hundreds of phone calls about the sighting, right? He's working the news desk, and he recalls seeing shiny balls moving fast towards the dome of the cathedral. He went out to investigate. He came across a small little kind of wooded area that was just covered in white fluff. Now, this is what I like. He gathered several samples. He rolled them up in a matchstick and took them to the Institute of Chemical Analysis at the University of Florence.
Brilliant.
And I guess other people had done the same thing when he had got there. The lab, which was led by a respected scientist at the time, subjected the material to spectrographic analysis and concluded that it contained the elements boron, silicon, calcium, and magnesium, and that it was not radioactive. So it's not spider webs. It's some sort of chemical substance that looks like spider webs.
Boron. What else?
Calcium, silicon, and magnesium.
That's crazy.
That's actually crazy. And who knows if there was stuff in there too they couldn't figure out what it was.
Very true. Very true.
But that's not the last one that happened in Europe. Let's go to our final one here. In Portugal, 1959. Strange stuff always happens in Portugal, doesn't it?
Yeah, why is that?
I couldn't tell you. But I guess this happened around noon on November 2nd, 1959 in Évora, Portugal. 2 strange objects were seen flying over the city. And according to witnesses, after their flyover, a bunch of white filaments were found everywhere, which the people from the city then called angel hair. Yeah. There was a professor, a man by the name of Joaquim Jomoral. He said, he was a data director for the Commercial and Industrial School of Évora. He witnessed this, and he said it was clear, like the day was clear. There was not a single cloud in the sky, and people saw a strange object or strange objects flying over the city. He went out outside of his school to witness what he said was a strange round blue object that went back and forth. He went back inside to get his telescope, and he was then able to see a second one emulating, several types of different maneuvers, just like the first one. He said both objects gained altitude and disappeared. And after that point, the filaments started falling from the sky. He said it lasted 4 hours, covering parts of the school of Évora and some of the houses in the city. And that this, I guess people were able to run outside, gather it, but they really weren't able to do a deep dive analysis. The little analysis they were able to do, according to a biologist by the name of Dr. Maria Jose Escario Santos, said the closest thing that it resembled were Colantarata, I guess, which is a species of sea anemone and other coral animals, I should say. But they didn't really know what it was, and the biology didn't really align one for one with anything they knew at the time. So I guess afterwards the sample was destroyed and it was never seen or heard from again. But, okay, so, I mean, again, another UFO sighting, you have this weird spider web material falling from the sky. Upon analysis here, maybe it kind of resembles some sort of, like, sea coral anemone thing. Nobody actually knows. So my curiosity's peak, I was thinking, like, well, maybe it was a USO, right? It came out from under the water, had some of this stuff in the craft.
Some of the coral got caught up in the exhaust.
Yeah. And then it released it to, I guess, keep going up higher, something like that.
Right.
But yeah, okay, so I guess at this point in time, we're down to 4 potential explanations. One we've already hit on. This is that spider ballooning, right?
Yeah, and I know it doesn't really make sense, and it's kind of a stretch, but I mean that would be the most logical, I guess. Right?
That would make sense. You would say, okay, there's spiders cruising around up there, and then they all fell down. And
yeah, maybe the UFOs are interested in the spiders cruising around at high altitudes, and it's just a correlation rather than a causation.
Far be it for me to say they aren't. Another theory here is atmospheric or electrostatic phenomena.
Such as?
Perhaps with the atmospheric conditions being just right, there's electrostatic discharges that could create or precipitate unusual materials, which I
Sure.
guess they still haven't pinned down yet.
That's like, maybe something happened, maybe?
Right, yeah. Something got mixed around up there, and we don't really know
We
what
don't
happened.
really know, but it's possible.
Another potential, logical explanation is that maybe this was some debris from space. Like, at this point in time, we're not doing a lot of deep space exploration, but
No.
maybe something fell from this, I guess, near Earth atmosphere or whatever.
I guess, but no. I mean, what is that? Okay, if it is like a byproduct or something from the UFO craft, I know we're not going to get to the bottom of it, but it's like, what is that?
What is it, and why does it happen? And by the
Why
way,
does it happen, but not always?
yeah, you're right. That should almost happen every time there's a mass UFO sighting or something.
Right.
Now, there's a huge list of these events occurring, and I could have done way more.
Oh.
But these were really big ones that happened in Europe in like the late 50s or whatever. So
Are they always in Europe, or are there?
no, there
here
are
in the
other
US?
accounts globally. Yeah.
Okay.
But like just for today's episode, I pulled these
Yeah,
three
yeah,
because
yeah.
they were so fascinating, and so many people had witnessed this stuff. So, and even got some samples. But I guess, like I said earlier, the jury's still out.
Man, I wonder if there's a more recent occurrence of this happening.
Tune in.
Tune in, guys.
We'll be looking this one up.
Let us know when angel hair falls from the sky in your yard. Hey, guys, thank you again so much for coming along for the ride here. We have fun doing this, and we love it when you listen. We love it even more when you rate, review, subscribe, and tell your friends and tell your neighbors and tell your local, I don't know, meteorologist? Yeah. Tell your local meteorologist about our podcast, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.